Firstly, what's your
Thank,
reaction to that
thank you, Danica.
50% reduction?
Oh, thank you, Danica, for following this up. Yeah, I just can imagine how people feel. Like, I'm back in Australia now since March, and I know how people are really stressed. Lots of money's been lost, lots of anxiety, and living in limbo for this long now. I can just imagine that people are just going to lose all hope whatsoever now, completely.
And it's quite a long road home now for Australians stranded overseas because the caps won't increase until we reach phase two. We still don't know at this point when we might get to phase two. So it's certainly a much harder path for Australians to return home.
Yeah, it seems really strange to me that we finally now have heard Scott Morrison's plan, and it seems like that everybody, all the premiers, have come together and have agreed on a plan. So my thinking is, has this been going on for so long because there's been no agreement, and now we finally have agreement across the entire states and territories and with the federal government? Is that why we now have a plan, step by step, as you said, plan all the way to what, 5, I think it is?
Yeah, four phases, but we still don't know that magic number, Deb, that
Yeah.
could be to completely reopening. Now, you just mentioned before that you returned back to Australia back in March. Can you tell us your story?
Well, my story started back in June last year when we were trying to get back, and my daughter tested positive. It was a false positive, but we got, slammed into quarantine, and very strict quarantine in Mumbai, India. Then it took us another, I think we booked Qatar flights for the following month, and we were bumped off those 4 times. And the last time we were supposed to fly with them was the 19th of May, and that flight was completely cancelled. But fortunately, by that time, we were back in Australia via a DFAT flight. I went through an incredible amount of anxiety. I suffer from anxiety now because of what we went through. Some psychiatrists, I've seen 2 different psychiatrists. One said PTSD, one said just situational anxiety. But, I still, am living in some sort of void where there's, you just don't know what's happening anymore. And for us to, go from June until March, living in different people's houses, my contract had finished, my housing was taken away from me. With the contract, and I was living, my daughter and I, 17, living in Airbnbs by the end of our 10-month wait. So, yeah, we were finally listed as vulnerable, and that's how we got home. I just can't imagine, I know what the anxiety was like for me going through, not knowing when we were going to get back, and now to have that reduced again, and, the concept that's out there that we're travellers, well, that's not the case, because most people are people who've been living overseas. Contracts came to an end like mine, and it was time to move back home or move on to the next contract. And even moving on to the next contract, wherever that is, has been impossible for many of us. So, it must be absolutely gut-wrenching right now for people. To be stranded and still be stranded, and only now we're hearing there's a plan. Actually, like, where was this 10 months ago? Where was the plan 12 months ago, back in March? You remember when Scott Morrison and the Commonwealth government airlifted everybody out of Wuhan, took them to Christmas Island, and that was the end of it. We never knew anything after that until we're closing the borders. Unfortunately for people in India, the borders were closed to commercial flights in March as well. So that means there's still no way out, because commercial flights are still suspended since March last year. There are still no way out of India.